This month we're looking at the topic of warnings. God's given us many warnings, not because He is trying to scare us and to make life difficult. He's trying to help us because there's lots of traps that are out there. And so today we're kind of looking at who we're listening to. And in the early days of radio, there was a program on there that you've probably heard about the program was showing them what an invasion from outer space would be like. But a lot of people listening to it, it was called War of the Worlds, thought it was real, and they started panicking over it. And we look back at it and we kind of smile at the hysteria that it produced, and we think we would never fall for things like that today. But yet the same thing still happens. We fall for things that we're told and what we hear and what we see, and things that aren't real are portrayed as real and we think they are, and we get things all messed up very easily. We live in a time when false news or stories with a spin are commonplace. If you don't know how to use Snopes, then you need to learn how to use it, because Snopes is a site that will, it's pretty reliable, that if you hear something, you want to know if it's true or not, you can go there and all these things that get passed around, just go to Snopes and find out if it's true or not, because it's easy to get caught up in the hysteria of things. There are many voices that influence us. If you spend very much time watching HGTV, you're constantly thinking about what you need to do to fix up your house, right? Because we're influenced by what we see and hear there. If we're listening to music that elevates the experience of human love, it puts us in a romantic mood. And that's a normal thing, because we're listening to that voice inside of us. When we read People magazine, we like to find out what's going on in the real life of all those celebrities out there. And we feel a connection to them when we read those stories, don't we? And it keeps drawing us back to that, because we want them to be real people like us, and we like to be able to read those things. It's not just the media, but the people that are around us that are speaking to us as well. No matter our age, we allow voices around us to influence us and to be able to, that lead us to be ourselves. Those voices become a part of us. And there's all kinds of voices out there. Some of the voices are negative voices, things that discourage us, maybe that call us names, that we're told that we're this or that, and it's very difficult to erase those things from our minds. There are other voices that do the opposite. They encourage us, they build us up, they give us courage to be ourselves. And those kind of voices help us reach our potential and make a mark on the world. In Proverbs 18:21, we're told that death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so we got to be discerning about the voices that we're listening to, because those voices that we hear are either bringing about death in us or they're bringing about life in us. And we need discernment and wisdom and understanding what voices to listen to. But also, when we use our voices, are we using our voices as instruments of life, or are we using our voices as instruments of death? And so God gives us a warning about who we're listening to, how we should be listening to the truth. And in Proverbs 22, the whole book of Proverbs is all about wisdom. And if you're reading through in your Bible, they're just one thing after another after another. They're not always connected together. They're just random proverbs and words of wisdom. But what we're going to look at today in Proverbs chapter 22, and let's just read this together. Proverbs 22, 17 to 21. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge, for it will be pleasant if you keep them within you, if all of them are ready on your lips, that your trust may be in the Lord. I have made known them to you today, even to you. Have I not written for you 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge, to make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you? Stay on that page. Yeah, stay on it. We'll look at some of the points that's made here. We're told first, incline your ear. In other words, be intentional. Open up your ears to the right things to listen to. It's important to listen. We like to be heard more than we like to listen usually. Even the introverts, when they have something to say, they want to make sure they're heard, right? So we definitely are wanting that to happen, but we need to really make sure that we have ears to listen. And not only should we be set on listening, but it's important to hear the words of the wise. If there's wisdom being portrayed to us from other people, from the media, wherever it is, from God's word, we need to open up our ears so we can hear it. Instead of thinking, oh, I already know it all. I've got life all together. Yeah, go on, talk. We need to have those ears to be able to listen to the words of the wise. Because if we're soaking in foolishness, what's going to come out of us? Foolishness. If we're soaking in wisdom, what's going to come out of us? Wisdom. And so we need to be filling ourselves up with that which is wise. Not only do we hear the words of the wise, but that second line up there says, apply your heart to the knowledge of it. We have to apply it. If we have the knowledge in our head, but it doesn't go anywhere, we don't use it, then that knowledge is useless in our lives. And you know what? It says, apply it to your heart. Your heart, the center of love. How can we take the wisdom that's given to us and help us be better lovers of people around us and better lovers of the God above us? To take that wisdom and learn how to love is the greatest thing that we can do. I like this quote here from one of the church fathers from long ago. He says, there are those who seek knowledge for the sake of knowledge. That is merely curiosity. There are those who seek knowledge to be known by others, and that is vanity. And there are those who seek knowledge in order to serve, and that is love. I love this quote. We want to learn, not so that we can just satisfy our curiosity or that we can look good in the eyes of other people, but we learn to be able to love. If our learning leads to love, then that's a great goal that's been reached. Going back to our passage here, it says that if you apply these things, you keep them within you, they will be ready on your lips. In other words, if the wisdom is inside of you, then that's the first thing that's going to come out of your mouth, isn't it? As you live your life, it's like what's in front of you. It's like what we share with other people around us. It's on our lips. And we don't have to go thinking, what do I do in this situation? The wisdom is there. And we want it to be there. We want to deep it inside of us so that when we need it, it's right there, kind of on the tip of our tongue. So we don't wander around trying to figure out what is wise and make mistakes in the meantime. We're not just talking about worldly wisdom here, because we all know the wisdom. You don't go out and play golf on a stormy day, right? That's worldly wisdom. We're talking about the wisdom that God gives us to be able to live life in a way that creates and that we are created for. And so that's the kind of wisdom that we're talking about today. Wisdom that comes from God, that God gives us, so that we can be able to live lives that will glorify Him and be what we are created to be. In this passage, it talks about three things that wisdom will do. It tells us first that it will help us to trust God. When we take that wisdom and it comes from God, is God going to steer us wrong? Is God putting out some sort of thing out there that we grab onto and we're going to ruin our lives over it? God wouldn't do that. God is a God who cares for us. He loves us so much that what He gives to us is something that we could trust. And when we take God's wisdom, even though it may seem contrary to human wisdom, but if we take that step of faith, that dive of faith, and say, God, you've said it, I'm going to trust you even though it's hard, even though it doesn't really make sense, and we take that, God's not going to steer us wrong. A very important thing for us these days. There's a couple different ways that and then it's knowing what is true and right. We'll get to that in a minute. And then sharing it with others. When we talk about trusting God and doing what's right, we listen to God through His Word and we listen through His Spirit. We can read His wisdom and we can listen to His wisdom. Because as we take in both of those things, then we're able to have the knowledge from God that He wants to give us at the time. But knowing what is right and true and right. I love this quote. Some of you know the book Pilgrim's Progress. It's an old book that's an allegory. It tells about a guy named Christian who's living his Christian life, but he's got all these adventures that teach him these things. And so he's going through on this journey to the celestial city, and he gets to a place and he says, "What is this valley called?" He's in this valley. And the guide says to him, "We call it now simply Wisdom's Valley. But the oldest maps, they mark it as the Valley of Humiliation." Wow. When I read that, I'm like, that is so true. How does most of our wisdom come? It comes through humility. It comes through maybe making some mistakes. It comes through being able to say, gosh, if I could go back and do it over again, I would have chosen a different way, right? And automatically, some things come to mind. You know, the way of wisdom, the valley of wisdom, comes through humility. It comes through being able to say, I don't know it all. And I need to listen to the right voices. I need to listen to the voices of God. I need to listen to the voices of those who are more experienced around me, that can share with me things that will help me to be able to make the right choices there. So I love that. I'm going to put that up on the wall in my office because I need to remember that. It's very easy these days to embrace. If it feels right, do it. In other words, we trust our own wisdom. That's what we're told. If it seems right to you, maybe it's not what God says, maybe it's not what your parents say, maybe it's not what your church says, but go ahead. So we're told, trust yourself. But we got to be careful because we can lead ourselves astray, trusting ourselves. We need to listen to the right voices so that we can find that way. Just a word to the younger generations out there, and you may be a younger generation and be middle-aged. You may be, we still need to grow and listen to those. We need to watch the lives of those that have gone before us and learn from them because they've gone through things. And I know young people think their parents were born, grown up, and they don't understand what it's like to be young. But we've all been there. Our parents and grandparents have all been there. And we understand way more than you think we do. Give us some credit. Maybe we didn't live in your world, we didn't grow up in your world, but we see things because we've experienced similar things as well. The circumstances might be different, but the way of wisdom can come through those that have lived longer than us. Even at my age, there are people older than me that are going through things that are showing me a path of life. I remember at my old church, I was in a men's Bible study group, and all of them were much older than me. I felt kind of weird being in there, but I learned so much from them because they would share what's going on in their lives. And even as a younger man than I am now, and with little kids, I was learning what it was like to let your kids go out to the adult world. I was learning what it was like to start dealing with your body, not being able to do all the things that you used to be able to do. I learned what it was like to all of a sudden be retired, and you've got to figure out how to redo your life and structure it again. I remember parents, I would complain about my little kids and the problems we had with them, and they're talking about, what do you do when your adult kid comes to you, their life's falling apart? You can't just put a Band-Aid on their knee and give them a hug, and it's all okay. You have to carry some pretty big burdens. So we can all learn, no matter what stage we're in, from those that go on before us. We need to incline our ear to them. Which brings us to point 3, which is share it with others. Experience is a great teacher. And if you have wisdom and there's people around you, share what you know. Not in an arrogant way. We need to be tactful. We can't beat it over people's heads. We can't force people. Share if they ask. But always ask permission. Hey, is it okay if I share an idea that I've had from my life that might help you in that situation? In a way that's full of humility, that allows us to be able to build into their lives. And what a gift it is if you have somebody in your life who loves God and loves you, then you can really trust them, that they're going to steer you in a good way. That would be a great thing to have in our lives. People that love God and love us. And those are voices we can trust and listen to. And if you, on the other side, love God and love somebody else, then build into their lives. As you pray for those people, ask God to give you words and things you can share with them so that you can share that wisdom with them. What a great gift to have. So, we trust God. We know what's true and right. We share this with others. And I'd just like to close with one last passage from the New Testament, the book of James, because James talks about wisdom in his book. He says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom." We've got meekness, humility right there, and it's conduct, it's how we apply it. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then it's peaceable, it's gentle, it's open to reason, it's full of mercy and good fruits, it's impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. You know, this passage is a great study of what wisdom is and how it comes across. It's sown in peace. It's sown in a way that builds bridges with one another when we share wisdom with each other. And that's what we see all of those descriptions there. And that's the wisdom that comes from God from up above. So let's take these verses to heart. Let's fill our lives with wisdom and share the wisdom and listen to the wisdom and fulfill what God wants us to do in our lives.